Hey there, this is Tony. Welcome back to Tony's Tech Tips, and today we're going to kind of sort of do some tactical natures and kind of sort of understand what's really happening with your car or truck. This is a 1997 GMC pickup truck. It's got one of those 5.8 liters in it, so that kind of sort of gets you up and down the road pretty decently. You know, in order to have a good little riding, you have to have a lot of fuel, you got to have a lot of air, and you obviously got to have a lot of fire. Those are the three things that really make your vehicle run. So when you put your foot in it, you can really feel that sling back against the seat, if you will. And just remember, otherwise known as what happens in the garage stays in the garage. So don't let that secret get out. Otherwise, folks that you're trying to win the race with, they might be winning the race with you. Today, let's start the first place. We're actually going to take a look over here at our friendly neighborhood air conditioner. And we're going to actually see what's happening inside our little box here, because we got to have some air. As we've talked about, if you've got some fuel that you got from your petrol machine, well, then you got to be able to basically keep things clean. Typically, you'll find a box of some sort. It may be a paper filter, it may be something you throw away, or it might be something that you actually clean. And in this particular situation, this is a high-performance K&N air filter. You'll see that it shows that it's green right here, and that particularly says that it is actually not dirty. What you would typically do is you would come up to this and you would vacuum this out. So it can be done with a regular shop vac or something like that. Handheld, portable, that would be just fine. The thing you want to watch out for are, little dust bunnies and those kind of things that kind of sort of wreak havoc on the situation. So typically you would replace this if it's a paper filter, and you would just basically deal with it from there. That's a really easy thing. You run out to your favorite Wally World or something like that, and you basically just get your next one and you put it in, and away you go. In the case like this, a K&N, they actually recommend that you lubricate it and vacuum it and clean it about every 3,000 miles. So pop that puppy out right there, spray it down with the cleaner, vacuum it all off, and you're in good shape from there. Next thing we want to talk about today is obviously fire, and from a fire perspective, you have to remember that you've got to have spark, and so you got to have spark plugs, and so we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. Typically, if you look down inside here, you'll notice that you've got spark plug wires. In this particular 8-cylinder truck, there are actually 8 wires, and there's a firing order for each particular individual motor. So if you get that firing order out of sequence, then obviously you got trouble, because your top dead center is not going to work from that particular perspective. So really, in a situation like this, you're going to pull the spark plug out. You're going to basically check and make sure that the number 1 spark plug is gapped at it, so what it's supposed to be. You can look it up online anywhere. Typically there's somewhere between 25 and 35 thousandths. They're making all kinds of plugs nowadays that last up to 100,000 miles. So you basically can do a tune-up every 100,000 miles instead of the old 30,000 or 25,000 even in some of the other situations. While we're here too, we should obviously be mindful of some things. You've got your master cylinder here. That's your reservoir that takes care of the brakes for you. Engine oil, if you're going to change your engine oil, obviously once you've dropped the bottom out of the plug and replaced your oil, then you want to be sure you put your oil back in. You can just check and make sure that your belts are looking good as too from that particular perspective. This belt should be tight. In this case, it's a serpentine belt. That means there's one belt that goes all the way around it. And then here's the neat thing about this particular engine. It's a Vortec. That really does take the air that's happening with the K&N filter, the spark that's happening with the fire, and then of course the fuel that's coming in. And this is actually not a carbureted engine. As I mentioned before, it's 1997, so therefore it actually has a throttle body in it, and it replaces the carburetor. So gone are the days where you have to pump the gas and so on and so forth. As soon as you turn that key, it's going to turn right over. So make sure you're gapping your plugs and checking those about every 3,000 miles or so, making sure that your oil is done about every 3,600 miles, and obviously take a look at your air cleaner for sure. There was a couple folks that wrote in last week asking us a few questions. They did want to know about that Pinto that we were talking about. We did a 1971 Pinto several shows back, and this is where we pulled the original 4-cylinder 1600cc motor out, and we put one of the elephant motors in, the 426 Hemi, and somebody asked how long it actually took us to do that. Actually, it took 3 minutes and 26 seconds, the same as all our shows. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Tech Tips with Tony. Bye!